Hi, welcome. Please share your name, pronouns, role and organization, and why you chose to be here today and chat with us.
I'm super excited about a little, let's start with Lizzo.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone. Please share with us in the chat your name, pronouns, role, organization, and why you chose to be here today. I'm so excited for this conversation with Dr. Luz. Luz has been a friend, a role model, a real co-conspirator in the work for social justice, but also in our own internal healing work. It's means so much to me to have an Asian American friend who is also resisting being counter to our conditioning of what it means to be an Asian American woman in our society. And she continues to push those barriers when it comes to parenting on purpose, and really thinking intentionally about what it means to be committed to our own humanity. So, Dr. Luz, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, so excited to be here. Daisy, you're like one of my faves. Yeah, I mean, when I think about badass Asian women, I do think Daisy Han. That's just the
Oh,
thing,
thank
right?
you.
So I was so excited that you invited me. I was like, wow, I'm like really shocked and also like excited to be here.
Yeah.
So, I love that introduction because when we're talking about the topic, which we'll get to, because we're going to do our wholeness practice, it's so important. The question is, how do we raise badass humans?
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's kind of simple. The simplicity of it is to be a badass. And what that means is to reclaim our humanity. So the title of this is Be Human, Raise Badass Humans. It's like there's like a little missing equal sign in there.
Yeah. Well, and I wanna go into all of the questions, and we also encourage you in the audience to come up with questions. But maybe before we do, Luz, would you be willing to ground all of us in this
Yes.
moment in a wholeness practice where we can really just arrive in our bodies, to be present for this conversation?
So, yeah, beautiful. So, as Daisy does and has all of the folk at Embracing Equity does, let's start by taking, like, really grounding ourselves, moving into wholeness. Number one, you are right where you need to be. Number two, take this time for you. Land in this spot. Know that there's nothing else you need to do and nowhere else you need to be except right here on this webinar. So take a deep breath. Let's do that together. What you might notice is a little bit of, maybe taking a deep breath. This is the first time you did this today. So welcome to the day. Close your eyes, and if that feels accessible to you, take a deep breath in. Again, close your eyes if that feels safe, if that feels good to you right now. Filling your belly with air and expanding it as big as you can. We hold our abdominal muscles so tight all the time. When you can't breathe anymore, exhale all the air out through your nose. tightening your stomach to take the out breath all the way out to the end. And breathe one more deep breath in. Let it all out. Bring your breath back to its normal rhythm and bringing your attention onto your body, feeling your chest rise and fall with the motion of your breathing. Feel the cool air on your nose as you breathe in and the warm air on your nose as you breathe out. Feel your shoulders lower and relax. Feel your cheeks soften and your jaw release. Let your tongue fall down from the roof of your mouth. Just feel your arms get heavier and sink further into relaxation. Again, let your stomach soften and relax and feel your legs get heavy. Feel your body melt into your relaxed position. Breathing out any extra tension or pain that might be lingering. And if you can in this moment, start to bring awareness into the fact in the moment, right now, that there's enough air to breathe. Your heart is still beating. Your body is basically okay. And you can register the fact and feeling that you're basically okay right now. You can still be aware of what's happening around you. In fact, even in a deep meditative state, you can be aware of what you need to be aware of. You are safe. So you can still be aware of what's happening around you or inside of you. You can still deal with challenges with the felt recognition of that truth, that right now, you are basically okay. See what it's like to open into a growing sense of feeling as safe as you reasonably can. And in this moment, at least, you are probably protected in various ways. There's no immediate life-threatening danger. So the invitation is to see what it's like to settle in to a growing sense of safety. Take a deep breath in and out. And now begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes, allowing your relaxed body to awaken. Feel your body rise and fall with your breath. And breathe in gratitude for this moment, for this time, and I would offer for yourself. Trusting that you will have everything you need to deal with the facts as they evolve. And in this space of peace, send out feelings of compassion, love, and healing. Imagine that love and healing spreading out all over the globe as you root yourself in community and in love. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, you can open your eyes and join us back here in the space.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. What a refreshing way to begin this time together. Thank you. I'm going to share in the chat as well the free wholeness script that we have on our website, as well as a wholeness reflection journal. These are things you're welcome to use, tools to get deeper into it. Yeah, now I'm like, so I'm so thank you.
You're like blissed out.
First deep breath, but today. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, sometimes we do that. I gave myself the gift of my own undivided attention this weekend and participated in a weekend-long breathwork retreat at Esalen, which is in Big Sur, and it was really edifying. I mean, what I learned from that is how focusing on my breath is a way to wholeness.
Exactly.
So I was excited when I saw this. I'm like, you asked me like, will you be the wholeness? I'm like, hell yeah, I could do that today.
Yeah, because so much of what we mean by our humanity is actually being in our human bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Embodying the somatic experience of being human.
Yeah.
Often so disconnected from our body, our actual physical body.
Right.
Our breath, we do it without even thinking. We hold it without even thinking, right? Like there's so much unconsciousness when it comes to our bodies. So wholeness is a direct antidote to get plugged back in.
Right. And it's as easy as focusing on your breath.
Yeah.
I think I shared this with you before. One of my practices, I was a classroom teacher, so a little bit about me, lower elementary teacher. I was principal, and in every situation where I was a leader, either in a classroom for a group of people, one of my wholeness practices would be something that I would call gathering my spirit. And all I would do is just, if I'm feeling, I would just feel in my body, and if I felt any tension because I'm about to interact with someone, I would just take a moment. I would say, hold on, let me gather my spirit. I would like, almost like I'm plucking it out of the air. I would go, I only want to treat you with the love and kindness I want for myself. And I would check in. Sometimes I would need a second breath. I need a second breath. And I would do this in a room full of young people. I would do this in really intense staff meetings. I would do this in really intense meetings with parents who were experiencing pain in whatever way they were experiencing pain. And oh man, you know, the first time you do it, it's like, oh, am I going to be a weirdo? And then you kind of realize, like, doesn't matter, because this is for me. This is not for them. This is for me. My wholeness is for me.
Right. Oh, so beautiful. So can you share with us why you initially decided to dive into this work of being amazing badass? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you a little bit. I'm going to, share a story with you, and I'll share this story from 1998. So just picture this. It's Santa Cruz. It's gorgeous. You've been in Santa Cruz. The sun is shining. It's like May 28th, 1998. The sun is shining. The sky is blue. It's gorgeous. And I was a hot mess in the middle of a parking lot. It had taken me like 7 minutes to get Sophia out of her car seat and Ben out of his car seat, and Sophia into an umbrella stroller, and Ben into like a front-facing carrier. And his arm like slipped out and his head almost hit the ground. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I had kind of spent Sophia's infancy and her toddlerhood sort of duct taping it together. I knew what I kind of wanted to be for her, and I was sort of making it work. And then at that moment in time, with that 7 minutes of just like struggling and trying to make it all happen, and just like letting out the kind of cinematic scream you see in like a black and white movie, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
I realized like, I have to be intentional around this. This isn't going to just happen. And there are two of them. I mean, I have a partner. We have been together for 31 years. So it's not that I was doing this on my own, although you can do it on your own. It was that the intentionality had to be there. And so my journey at the time, so this is the 90s, my young people now are, Sophia will be 29, good God almighty, and Ben is 26. So at that moment in 1998, there really was like what to expect when you're parenting.
Yeah.
And then there was like personal development, and then there was positive discipline. But actually all of those books, the books about children, were about them and their needs, and they weren't about me. And I realized like, I don't have the resources to be the person that I need to be. There's something with me. And at first I thought I was broken. And then I realized I'm not broken. I have, but but I do know that I'm in danger of replicating what was done to me. And so my journey became, we talked about this in our prep session. You know, we all have experienced this. We're in people's lives, we're at work, we're in our families, and someone will say, well, yeah, it actually sucked for me too. It's totally my Southern California roots. Yeah, it sucked for me too. And then, so my questioning had always been, so hold up, if it in fact sucked for you,
yeah,
why are you making it suck for me? Like, that's the kind of company line that it sucked for me, it's going to suck for you. And my whole like philosophy beyond like be human, raise badass humans has been, if it sucked for me, I will make it suck less for you.
yeah, yeah.
And the gift of my children was that with Sophia, I basically gave birth to myself. I was a strong-willed little person who had definite opinions about all the things.
Yeah.
And I would not be controlled. And I was born to, my parents immigrated from the Philippines, and they were scrapping. They came here with actual careers. They came here. My mom had finished out medical school in the Philippines. My father had his civil engineering degree from the University of Santo Tomas. So these were folks that had professional careers, but they're still scrapping. And again, by the way, they immigrated from the Philippines to outside of Detroit. I don't kind of think that Filipinos should be in the snow.
Yeah, it's rough.
So there was just like a lot of stress. And I felt the restriction. I felt the control. I felt that this is how you're supposed to be. I grew up in the 70s. It was a lot of like, let's wear white pantyhose with frilly bottoms. And, it just was like a lot of gendered stuff, a lot of here's what we do. I'm Filipino, so there was a lot of what you do actually speaks to what I do as a parent. There's a lot of collectiveness around it. So when I gave birth to myself, I realized I have the opportunity for a do-over. But I'm going to have to be really intentional, because the patterns I witnessed and the treatment I received is here.
Yeah.
It's here. And it's not even here in the frontal lobe or thinking brain. It's back here in like the feeling brain. It's in the trauma centers. It's in my body. And if I am not intentional every day, I will default. And I talk about this, the default parenting, where we've all done it. There are parents in our group right now. So let me ask you this question. Answer yes or no. Have you found yourself saying something that you as a little person swore you would never say?
Yes.
And it just like comes out of your mouth and you're like, oh my God. Who just like, it's like somebody took over your body.
Yeah. It's so ingrained. It's very deep.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know me, I'm like a strong ass woman, right? So one day I actually heard myself, wait till your father gets home. And I was like, what the actual, what was that?
Yeah. And what
I didn't even know, like, I didn't even know what was behind that. Like, what would happen?
He would be home.
He would be home. We would make dinner and have dinner together. I don't know what this threat even is. What was that supposed to instill in them?
How did you walk?
Matsu says, after the birth of my first child, I suffered through postpartum depression without realizing it. Yeah. Because there's a lot of hidden stuff around parenting. There's a lot of, for women, there's a lot of like hormones. People really don't talk about this kind of things that happen to us. And there's this expectation of servant, of martyr, of, and now I see on the flip side, things like mommy needs a glass of wine, which is like fine. But if we don't come back to our wholeness of who we are supposed to be, is these bright, beautiful human beings that we saw. And our feelings of wanting to dominate them have everything to do with how we were brought up, and not anything about coming back to our humanity.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
being human means to reclaim all of the stuff we now have told ourselves based on our families, our education, the culture at large. We start to curate who we are.
Mhm.
There are things that are not okay. Like we
Yes.
talked about this, like Asian women,
Mhm.
it's not okay to, ask for help was one of those for me. It's not okay to look not smart. Like actually that was like a huge part of my therapy journey was to, I think in one session I said, I don't know the answer to that. And my therapist was like, hold up, you, Dr. Luz Casquejo Johnston, don't know something? And I was like, I don't know it. And
It's
I
okay.
I don't feel shame.
Yeah.
It was like breakthrough. Because looking not smart is a big deal,
Yeah. Right.
right?
It's the model minority myth.
Yeah, and it's damaging because we're
Very
put into
damaging.
these positions that are not suitable for us, right? And we're made to be a certain way. So we curate our lives of who we should be and how we should be and how we should express ourselves. And we have to reclaim all those things
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
to be our whole selves.
Right. That
Yeah.
really started for me with the birth of my child. My therapist says it was the force that I required to be able to go inward in this transformation of self. And otherwise, these kind of toxic behaviors that I learned um, have served me, like
Yeah.
have rewarded me. So I would have probably
Ding
kept
ding.
doing it.
Here's a degree.
Yeah, the cost of my own wholeness, the cost of my own well-being, the cost of my mental health, it didn't matter, so I was continuing to do that until I had my child and realized the cost is now the harm and the
Mhm.
intergenerational trauma that is gonna be passed down, and
Yeah.
it's too expensive, that's way too high to continue this way, so really forced me to, like, reckon with, what is my self-worth outside of my productivity, outside of
Oh.
degrees, outside of my accomplishments, how do I reclaim that just for who I am,
Mhm.
and go more inward in the process
Mhm.
of looking for
Yeah.
value.
How is my being outside of my doing?
Yeah.
Like, how is my beingness the worthy, the juicy, worthy middle of me
Mhm.
outside of my doing?
Mhm.
Because we make it this equation of like, I do this, I am this, I do this, I am this, I do this, I am this. But really, I just am.
Right.
I'm all the messy things, right? I'm a mess. I don't know stuff.
Yeah.
I can be mean.
I
I
make
can want
mistakes.
my time. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? Like, so we have these ideas that of who we should be that lead to these beliefs that no longer serve us.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's like when we claim that humanity and our children see us work through it, then what they are encouraged to do is to be themselves. And it takes intentionality, but I don't want this to look like, well, now I can only do this if I live in some sort of like community in a retreat center and I eat like whole foods and stuff. And I think that's a myth too. Like when I talk to parents, they think that being a good parent is like a thing, right? It's like, oh, I'll go to the store and I'll get this thing and then I'll be a good parent.
Mm.
And when it
The
looks like
commodity.
when it looks like a monolith, when it looks like some big, gigantic, overwhelming thing, then I can't take it apart. And what I learned throughout my time is that it's small micro actions that make a lot of difference. Like I
Mhm.
had a wholeness ritual coming home. So I don't know if you're in your culture they do this, but in the Filipino culture, I was brought up to take off my outside shoes and put on slippers. Do you have that too?
Yes.
So I made that a wholeness ritual for myself. So I intentionally put a bench, or something. I think it was just a chair. And I would take my shoes off and I would say, the cares of the way I'm putting away. And now I am home. And I would put my shoes on because I really wanted to be in my body for my children.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, 5 seconds, maybe
What
10.
is it? The cares of the day?
Yeah, the cares of the day I put away. And it doesn't matter. You can just make it whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then just like, now I am home. The big
Yeah.
thing is whatever the symbol of I am home. Because sometimes we just like rush into our homes and we just kind of default into whatever we're doing. And we forget that what we're actually here to do is actually not to make dinner. It's actually not to get someone to the next activity. What we are here to do in family is to build a whole community. And you can't do that if you're just like, whatever messed up thing happened on the freeway or whatever like last minute meeting you had and you just like rush in, right? I used to be really, so part of it is just having these moments of intentional time. So I wanted to mention that. And part of it is having these.
Well, so yeah, in terms of steps on how to move toward the humanity, we talked about wholeness and then you just talked about intentional time.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah, for you.
And it doesn't have to be 90 minutes, 2 hours per day. It can be as easy as a 6-minute meditation. In fact, that's like actually one of the things that's in my links is I do have I have like an 18-minute meditation that I show you how to kind of collapse into just 6 minutes.
Okay.
So it's got 6 phases to it. But the idea being that we can do these small things to be in our wholeness. The second thing, that's the third thing actually, that's really big is to be the witness for our own unfolding and to make that visible. Right? So what I mean,
example of that, yeah.
Yeah, totally. What I mean by that is that, if I had a hard day in the classroom, I would say, instead of just like freaking out, I would actually just say, I'm feeling a lot of tension in my body. I am like ready to freak out. I just need to lay face down on the floor. I'm just going to lay face down on the floor. That's what I'm going to do. Some days it was something different, right? And I'm going to be here with you. And this was when they were really, really little. I would kind of vocalize what was going on for me. And then I would say, I just need a timeout. Mommy, timeout. You'll see me. I'll just be face down.
Yeah.
And they actually saw me do that. I mean, there is oversharing, which we don't want to get into the territory, but just letting them know where you are and because you want to be resourced. So that thing about, I don't know if we did this in the did I talk about the gathering my spirit? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I do that, it's just like to make visible what I must do in order to be the best version of me.
Oh, I love that.
Right. Yes. And so there are like co-regulation techniques that I used to like. I never taught anything to my children. What I would do is talk about things that I'm doing that help me, and let me show that to you. And we would do these kind of things just like in our own time, not like now it's time for now it's time for mommy to sit down with a whiteboard. It's just being in community with our children and letting them know where we are. Like, I am really not resourced right now. Like right now I'm not resourced. I haven't eaten. I have to make a snack. I'm going to like make sure I have a high quality protein. I would use all of these terms because I wanted them to know. And maybe I would invite them. I'd go, I really need a good snack and I want Fruit Loops like in a bad way. But I feel that that's not going to serve me. Can you help me pick a snack? And, but I always use I used all the terms, I come from Montessori. So I would use the terms of carbohydrates and proteins, complex carbohydrates and proteins and simple sugars and things like that. And I'd say, can you help me find a really high quality protein in the fridge? And I usually would have that on hand. They would see me eat weird stuff. Like, I'm just going to take like actual deli meat.
Yeah. We do that a lot.
And just like throw it in my mouth and have a little half of avocado, but we would talk about these things about how do I resource myself so that I'm the best version of myself. What that does for them is it shows them in my own humanity, I can be under-resourced, and that's okay. In my humanity, I can talk about not being okay. I can talk about being stressed, and that's okay. And I can, in community, come to solution. Because our families are our first communities. So when they see these, when our children see these things, when they see us claiming our wholeness, when they see us taking care of our bodies and our minds and our spirits, they start to envelop. These are we don't have to say like, in our family, we don't do that. There was a lot of that, like blah, blah, blahs, insert family name. Casquejos don't do blank, right? We didn't do that. We just we knew based on how we were in community with each other. So I think it is those practices of retrieving our wholeness and being stressed and talking about it and having problems and talking about problems. And I think then they understand that everything about me is okay. And my job as the parent is actually to help my children channel their characteristics, right? So I said, I gave birth to myself. Part of that is having an opinion. That's not welcome a lot of times.
Correct. A lot of times. Yes.
For people that look like you and me, it is very unwelcome. So how do I help her channel that? I got to be real with her. I got to say it is important to have a strong opinion. It is important to hold that opinion, but how we express that can be different depending on where we are. And we just talk about things like that. It is as the adult in the room, we have to care for ourselves. A lot of parents under-resource themselves because of the whole be a martyr, do all the things, right? And when we under-resource ourselves, what we tell our children is that we are not important and they expect more and more of us. And then we're really giving from a depleted place, which then becomes resentment, right?
Yes.
And it comes out sideways.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. They don't deserve that. So what does it mean then, when you're modeling all of this and demonstrating through the community building work with your children? Was there feedback you got? Do you remember a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, they're badass?
Oh my gosh, yeah. All the time. I created a lot of structure with flexible structure, right? Because, the natural world is like that. There's structure, but there's flexibility. And a lot of meaningful power, right? So some people will engage their children in power that's not even meaningful. It's just you don't really mean that, right? So giving them meaningful power meant that, if we're talking about a vacation and they're really little, I'm not if you were my child, hey, Daisy, where do you want to go? You're like Disneyland. And then I say, no, well, that's now not meaningful power. But if I say, we have the ability to spend 3 days and we have the ability to spend this much money, let's plan a trip. I've kind of done some research and these are the options I'm thinking about. Do you like one of these or shall we think about it together? Right? So because they had those experiences of caring for their bodies, knowing that I need protein, knowing that sometimes I get real crabby in the afternoon, I got to take care of my body then. they were people that could stand up for themselves. And because I had showed them what flexible structure was, they were able to really kind of show up as they were, right? So, my son is, there's this like traditional male archetype, and he doesn't fall into that. He's very sensitive, he's very silly, and that can be not welcome in the world. And so to create spaces for him to show how he is that way and to be strong enough in his power so that when he was, when he's starting to make friends and sleep over, that he can express things like, I don't like the way that they are with their sisters, so I don't want to actually go to their house anymore. To have a little person be able to say, I don't want to go there because, and have the because be about how they care for each other. I mean, that's pretty badass.
That's pretty badass. For sure.
Yeah. And, seeing Sophia has always been just on fire all the time. And just to see them blossom, to see them grow, to see them make their way in the world, to see them lead movements. But even prior to that, claiming quiet authority. Like Sophia really has a knack for leading from in the middle. Because there's some leaders who lead from the front, there's some who lead from the behind, but they can really like put themselves, and all of a sudden a movement is coalescing around them and everybody's like, oh, look at what we're doing.
That's awesome.
And then they'll sit back and they'll systematize things. They love to systematize things. They love to make little zines about. So yeah, when they were in, I think undergrad, they were working at a center and they made these little zines for people about how to navigate the university. This is at UC Santa Cruz. So just having this like care, but I'm going to do something that's not like, now I'm going to give a webinar.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm going to make this zine and make it really inviting to look at. And now you can navigate the university. It's those kind of experiences that I really enjoyed. It's the way that they, both of them in their own ways were upstanders. Because we talk about bullying, the bullying circle, and that there's bystanders, and there's either active or inactive bystanders. There's either active or inactive people who are participating in bullying behavior. But upstanders are really powerful because they band together and make the situation either stop or not even happen. And I saw my children do that. And that takes that's a strength of character that comes from like, I'm okay to make a risk because I also know that I have the resources to repair if I need to.
Right.
So
yeah, that knowing is critical to being able to even take that kind of step. Right?
Yeah. And they both have it in their own ways. I mean, and my kids are really different. Ben is a wealth manager. That's different for our family.
Yeah.
Patrick works for the National Park Service. I'm here in education in schools. You can actually hear the little people in the classroom next to me. Ben's a wealth manager, and Sophia works for UC Berkeley, a public servant. So,
well, how does this apply? Like, how can folks do this if they're not parents?
If they're not parents, I think the biggest things are the practices of wholeness, right? The practice of asking myself what my own opinion is about my life and what I actually want to do. Because sometimes we just sort of default and float around. And then we haven't asked ourselves our preferences. I mean, you would be shocked, the people that I work with sometimes, when I ask them like, what choice do you want? And they don't have an answer. They want me to give them the answer. And it's because they haven't asked themselves what their preferences are. So getting to just those wholeness practices actually help us to get reacquainted with who we actually are. Our preferences, all of the qualities Characteristics are actually not, they can all be neutrally charged. We just make them mean something,
Yeah.
right?
But this
So,
is like this is ultimately liberation, right? If
yeah,
we're able to get in touch with our authentic humanity, then
yeah,
we get liberated. That's how
yeah,
we get free. So regardless of whether or not you're a parent or a caregiver, it's for you. And some of
yeah,
us, like I was sharing, um,
yeah,
needed
yeah,
this
yeah,
much force that a parent, being in that parenting role
yeah.
really um,
Yeah, it
and
does cause you to like make a choice. I want to read something. I read this every day. It's a Marianne Williamson quote. I think a lot of people know it, but it's something that
okay,
calls me to, I'm just called to read it. Our
yeah.
deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are
Mm,
you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of creation that is within us. And it's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we
mm,
let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
mm,
When we make present the possibility of who we can be, other people go. What I want people to do is to experience me and just go like, she's just a regular human. So that is possible for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all kinds of like shiny gurus out there, right?
yeah,
And they're untouchable. But I want to be that very human person that can lead the way, where you say, like, you are liberated and I want more of that. Plus, you're human and I can relate to that. So I
yeah,
know that it's possible for me. So I was doing a
yeah.
little bit of coaching today. We talk about the possibility ladder. It's possible for others. So my liberation is possible for others. So we look out into the community of other people who are liberated souls. And then we say, what do they do that I can do? Can I gather my spirit? Can I take a moment of wholeness? Can I have a practice at the end of the day? I can do that. So now it's not only possible for others, now it's possible for me. And as I enact those practices, it becomes probable that I will be like that person. And then
Mm,
it becomes inevitable.
mm, okay.
Possible for others, possible for me, probable, and then inevitable.
Yeah, I have a real concrete example of this
Yeah.
because I am learning about boundaries from my 4-year-old. And she is so good at setting boundaries with people. She does not caretake to how you feel about her boundaries. She just states her own boundaries,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're liberated." Like
Yeah.
you are able to do this thing like I struggle to do, and I see through her like, "Oh, I do get to do this. I get to have boundaries too."
Yeah. And you can,
But the
yeah.
process is like as someone who's learning this, right, as the parent from my child, I'm seeing Alden like embody it in ways where if if anybody gives her a little pushback on something that she's doing, like she's working on something and they give a little bit of pushback on it, she'll respond like, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I wanna do, which, like, in certain contexts, like, may be true, but it is very, like, almost triggering to hear that
Yeah.
because it sounds, like, entitled, it sound like I'm judging it through my
Oh,
default
uh-huh.
lens
That's
as,
such
like,
a great
"You're
point.
you're being spoiled, like, I don't kn this is rude," you know? But in my true, connection to my humanity, I'm like, "No, she is right. She can choose to do what she wants to do on her own work," for
Right.
example, right? Like, she doesn't have to listen to you. how do you recommend moving through that with these tensions?
Yeah, because what we teach our children to do when we're talking about boundaries is that your boundaries are your own until they impede the freedom or liberation of another.
Mm-hmm.
So she is 100%. She can't do what she wants to do. Unless that something is like snatch the last, you're eating an apple, you're starving. This is your sustenance and nutrition. And she grabs it from you. That's where we draw the line. Like, as long as you're, what is that? I can't remember the quote. There's a really great quote about how I'll allow you until your liberation. Anyway, it's a great quote. Just trust me.
Remember, this is like until
Your liberation.
Like it's something like dehumanizes me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can do whatever you want as long as you're thinking about yourself in community. Like, is this an appropriate thing for me to do now? Like, I can do what I want. I can run and tear down in the supermarket. Yeah, you absolutely can. And we're in community here.
Okay. So something like, you're right. And how does that impact our community? Like,
yeah, you're absolutely. And I noticed that we're in the store. And the other thing I noticed is that you almost ran into this woman with a cane. Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing I would say, like, is that cool? I don't think so. And I was very like low-key California style, right? So I'd be like, dude, for real. Like, does that feel like, would you like that to happen to you? You know, that's the kind of thing that we would say. So, it's the same, like, you and I have both been in classrooms. So we know, like, young people working together can talk with each other until their talking interferes with the work of other people.
Right.
So Alden, you absolutely are right. You can do everything that you want to do. You have the ability to. Do you have the opportunity to do that right now? This is your time to like run around and like, how do we know where places where we could just run around are? She knows.
Yeah.
So like, especially if you're touring around or whatever and you go into a sacred space, right? Some sacred spaces really are open and they look like really fun to run around, but we have to read that. We have to go, you're right. This is a really open space and it would be super cool to run here. But I'm also noticing how quiet it is. I'm also noticing that people are, I'm not sure, but it looks like they're having a sacred moment. Do you know what I mean? We're just like noticing and calling that out, like what's available to us. And sometimes with Sophia and Ben, when they were little, we would talk about where we were going. We're going to the store now. And what are some things that are available to us?
In advance.
Yeah. Like, can we just like run around and like eat the produce? Hilarious. Because my mom would often like eat a grape or something. And so like when I asked them this one time after they had visited their Lola, and they're like, well, Lola eats a grape. And I went, oh, busted. Sometimes Lola does that because she's really invested in super fresh fruit. And I know that you saw that. And also I still want to say that let's refrain from that.
Yeah. And like talking about, do you go into why?
Like, why don't we steal? Or why don't we like just eat fruit? Well, yeah, I would say like, this is a place of business, and here we exchange our energy in the form of money for goods and services. And here, what we're exchanging our money for is food.
Wow, that's great.
Right.
Awesome.
That's why we don't just like go on rides in Disneyland, or, you go to a place like, we used to go to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk and you would have to pay per ride. I feel like you're not going to just like run on a ride. How do you know that? Because there's somebody there. But why don't we do it? Because in this place, the standard is that we pay per ride or whatever.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah.
helping them to have a cultural literacy or an environmental literacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And almost an attunement too.
Yeah, a discernment. I love that's like my new favorite
Yeah.
word, discernment.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
museums are really open, beautiful spaces, right?
Right.
That would be a great space to run around. And yet,
Right.
what I notice is that no one is doing that. So
Mm.
we'll talk about it before, and then
That's smart.
then just do a little reminder, like, oh yeah, we're going to museums. Do you remember what we said about museums?
Yeah.
And why do we walk?
Yeah.
Because that is how people enjoy the art here.
Yeah. Cool. And I think also a metric of success is like an outsider looking in on your parenting, Luz, is that how you have like a genuine friendship with your adult children.
I do.
That is should be the goal, right? Like you want to be able to be with having children who you want to hang out with,
Yeah, for certain. Yeah.
who want to hang out with you. Like that's ultimately the feedback, right? Around
Yeah, I mean, my adult children will text. And so what I like to say about parenting is there's this like super active phase. By the way, you're in the super active phase.
Yeah, I'm in it.
And
Yeah.
then when we come into middle school and high school, we come into the coaching phase. So they have the skills, we're supporting them, we're helping them reach their goals. And then we get into the, I had a better term, but I'm just going to call it counseling phase, where they ask us for counsel.
Yeah.
You know, things like, what are all these deductions on my paycheck?
Yeah. They're not optional. Yeah.
I'm like, that's not optional. Do I have to pay taxes? Some people don't. We choose to because we value public education and, you know, fresh water, and we, you know, like, we pay taxes. So those kind of things, like they ask us for counsel now.
Yeah.
Like, is an IKEA couch really worth it? It depends on, you know, what your goals are for your
Right. That's really special though. And like to have that kind of intimacy, because right now we're seeing with the adult population, last holiday period, it was the highest number of adult children choosing not to spend the holidays with their parents, which is really fascinating. The New Yorker had an op-ed about, you know, what happens when family becomes optional, and adult children who did not get to have boundaries, who did not have their boundaries honored as children, are now setting boundaries with their parents as adults. And that boundaries looks like distance. It looks like separation. You know, it looks like disconnection. And that's the ultimate loss. Like, I don't want to end up in that situation with Alden. I want to make sure that I'm parenting in a way on purpose, in a way that ensures she's going to want to come to me for counsel. She's going to want to come to me for comfort. And this will be a relationship of respect and love, you know? And so ultimately, like, it's kind of that long-term.
And that's the thing is, like, you have to have the long-term view. You are out in the world, Daisy, you know, there's a lot of like Instagram type parenting, and there's a lot of default parenting, and there's a lot of pendulum parenting where I'm like strict, and then I'm like, I feel really bad about that, and now I'm super lax. And that's really hard for kids.
Yeah.
Because kids who grow up without these limits, they actually feel unsafe. This is true. Like when we are constantly making the limits bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, or they can't predict how we are going to react to them on any given day, it feels like unsafety. So consistent parents feel safe. And when I feel safe, I can make innovative and creative choices, right? We know that innovation and creativity really happen when people feel safe to explore.
Or learning, even just learning, right? You need to feel safe first.
That's why there's that big push to community, which is like, you know, again, for me as a Montessori person, it's like, that is like what we do all day long.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, yeah. So when we create community, that's what happens.
Well, and thank you so much for being in the Embracing Equity community, sharing your wisdom with our whole community here and in the world. We are getting to the end of time, so I want to
I
invite.
knew this would happen.
I know if there are any questions you want to ask Dr. Luz, please drop it in the chat so we can get to your questions too. But in the meantime, maybe Luz, you can share a little bit about how to get in touch with you, how to work with you.
Yeah, I have some free resources. I'm building all of that out. So I have like a free resource, which is in the drluzlive.links. I'm totally also happy to have like a 30-minute call, coaching call. So I am I'm a master life coach. I say that because I've been coaching people for like decades. And I also use an intuitive, energetic approach. So there's a lot of like healing within that coaching process. And on Saturday, I'm starting a 10-week series of courses that I'm calling Parenting on Purpose, Be Human, Raise Badass Humans. Every week we'll meet. It's a time of like reflection and workshopping and that kind of thing. And then each participant will think of one thing, one small micro action they can do during the week to move them forward. And it's pretty amazing, the kind of transformation. So I've named this a few times. I am Filipino. We like a good cousin discount. So I'm happy to extend that to people. Let me drop that in the chat. I don't know if this will be saved, but it's literally called the cousin discount.
I love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Tita Luz. And maybe can you share with us also, like as we're going out into the day, I'm getting ready, at the end of the day to pick up my daughter from school. Are there some micro actions that you can this with that we could maybe try to practice?
So I think that the first thing is just to have that, like, how are you going to prepare yourself for the next part of the day? So you can do this in as short a span as 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 seconds, where you just say, I want to be my best self. And let's say you're in the parking lot, however this happens to be. I'm in the parking lot. I'm parking to get Alden. You can just sit in the car and just say, like, in order to be in my fullest humanity, I need, and then fill in the blank. It might be a couple deep breaths. It might be, I better go get me a high protein snack. Okay. Do you know what I mean? And just like, check in with yourself before you move into your time with your children, because that's the most important thing, is that we are our best self for the people that we love. And we can't do that unless we give to ourselves first. My God. Like, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love this. Okay. Thank you. In order to be in my fullest humanity as my best self, I need blank.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might even need, like, I need a hug, so I'm going to give myself a hug.
Yeah.
That's a good one to bring yourselves back into your bonus. This is called the butterfly hug, and it actually goes across the midline. So if you just squeeze the tops of your shoulders, squeeze the middle, squeeze your elbows, and then just do this, you're actually reintegrating yourself and bringing yourself back into your body. Yeah. That's like an easy one.
Soothing.
Super soothing.
Yeah.
I've used it with middle schoolers and high schoolers. They love it too. So that's like the test. Like, is it still cool?
That's so awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your authentic badass humanity, and just really refusing to be anything less than that in how you show up in the world. It's such a gift, and I'm incredibly grateful for you. So thank you.
I'm grateful for you too. So thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you, Luz. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.